The 2-week event that just ended this morning with the lovely party at the beach, which a number of people in this room were present for. And the event was a 2-week meditation retreat / pilgrimage, we called it, from this building to the ocean. And we left here 2 Sundays ago in the morning of that Sunday and arrived at the beach at about 11 a.m. or so this morning. And we called the event Walking Together. It included a number of days of meditation retreat at the Sanctuary of Healing Arts just outside of Philomath, up at the campground just below the summit of Mary's Peak, and also at the campground in Harlan called Big Elk Campground. And outside of those meditation retreat days, we were walking from one location to the next with a schedule that included meditation and chanting service in mornings and evenings. And once or twice had a half-day meditation retreat followed by some shorter walking. And there might have been a day off in there somewhere.
A couple of sleep-in mornings.
So this event was the second time that Shinei and I have co-led something like this. We did a version of it a month long on the Pacific Crest Trail last year, and this year felt a little bit more clear about how to run it as a practice event. Last year there were some question marks at times about, well, are we doing a pilgrimage or is this just a backpacking trip, and what does that actually mean? That's one of the questions that might be interesting to look at tonight as we talk. What actually makes something spiritual practice? But that Walking Together event was born from an extended trip that she and I had done maybe 3 years ago now, in which we walked together quite a long distance through Latin America. And we had called it a pilgrimage, and very much it was a journey of self-discovery, a journey of learning a lot about different cultures and what we might call poverty, and learning a lot about our own culture here back in North America. And also learning that practice community was something that each of us really valued and really missed during that trip. The Buddha says that it takes 3 to make a sangha, and until we got our dog, we were 2. And there were a number of times during the trip when...
I don't think the dog counts.
You have to check the Pali Canon. There were a number of times during our trip when someone came and joined us, and it was interesting to observe how it really was the case that when one more person was present, all of a sudden it was really possible to have some kind of disciplined practice routine that didn't really work in a regular way when it was just the 2 of us. So, as we were inspired to share what we had done for that whole year, which was a walking retreat of sorts, but in the context of real practice community, we did this event last year on the Pacific Crest Trail, and then dialed it in a little bit more this year on the Corvallis to Sea Trail, which for us was this beautiful, beautiful coincidence because we just started here and the trail crew had just completed this trail in the last year. So it really was a marvelous opportunity. We had different numbers of people over the course of the event. Both last year and this year, I had imagined this perfect, simple, humble, walking from one point to another and carrying our supplies, and both of them ended up becoming logistical nightmares in terms of logistics and food drops and all of the different part-time attendances that ended up being a part of the mix, which were big blessings and also so complicated because our menu with 14 times 3, 42 meals had a different head count for every single meal.
Not every meal.
It was crazy.
A lot of
it was
them,
crazy.
yeah.
But you know, that's how life is. You have a beautiful idea, and then you pursue it, and it gets ugly real fast. But you've got to see it through. You have to see it through.
Hogan Zenji, I'll just say one thing real quick.
Please.
Hogan Zenji, I called him. Hogan Roshi, he would say that whenever you make a vow to do something, you immediately also encounter all the obstacles to doing those things. Those arise simultaneously with the vow. We have an image of this, oh, it's so perfect. But it always has all of those things to figure out that aren't so enjoyable always. And so that's really where our practice comes, is like holding this vow and this intention, and then really meeting each moment, which can be stressful. And that's how we grow in that vow, is by meeting those obstacles and continuing through them. And then in the end, we have this beautiful outcome, which is our wiser and more mature heart mind.
Do you want to continue with anything, or should
No,
I go?
go ahead.
Okay.
I'll just I didn't write anything, so I'll
Yeah,
just
sure.
chime in whatever I have a thought.
So let's look.
Yeah, we started 10 minutes late.
Okay. So let's look at this question. What is spiritual practice? We had our closing circle for this event this morning.
Last night.
Sure. And there were last night there were 5 of us, and it was very intimate by then. And from our perspective, after 2 weeks of continuing, it was no longer something that we were so much leading, but the snowball had developed enough momentum that it was just something that we were all doing together. So whatever, and I say that to introduce the fact that I believe that the practice, so to speak, was no longer, it was something that was doing us. It wasn't something that we were holding the reins of anymore. As a definition, here I'll just offer, spiritual practice is anything that challenges or changes our most fundamental beliefs about who or what we are, or what the world is. And this can be on the level of the nameable, and it can also be more subtle than that. So it can be on the level of, I thought I was this way, but discovered I'm more than that, or different from that. And it can also be energetic. I really felt localized in a being I really felt localized as a being, and now I don't experience myself in that way anymore. And same thing with the world. I really thought the world was unfair. But now I see that was just an idea complex that was floating through me and actually was unfounded. Or it could be more energetic. I actually thought the world was something that existed out there, but now I see life is simply more intimate than that. So those are, please do.
So I would define it a little bit differently. I would say that what Soten's describing is a spiritual insight. And it's interesting to think, is spiritual insight different from spiritual practice? In one sense, I would separate them. I would say spiritual practice is like an orientation towards the truth. And so it can be an inquiry practice, like a questioning. What is this? Who am I? What is this suffering that I feel? Or is this belief true? Investigating beliefs. Or it could be like a samadhi practice, like aligning with the present moment experience in whatever way, through feeling body sensations, through feeling breath, through listening to sound. That's what I would call the spiritual practice. And then what you were describing of, how did you define it, when we realize that we're different, so the world is different, or we are different than we thought that we were, that's sort of, in a way, the fruit of the practice, that we start to clarify or see more accurately actually what is going on, and that's liberating. But it's interesting to think of them actually as the same thing, which might actually be more accurate, that the practice is the realization, is the insight. So maybe that's where you were going.
Well, there's lots of things that we can do that might really look like spiritual practice, but if they don't have that particular intention of going beyond oneself, maybe they're not. Sitting on a park bench can be a million different things. It can be like hoping you get a date. It can be profound meditation. It can be deep despair. So our questions in leadership during this event were, how do we design this such that we are effectively changing people's sense of themselves, and where that self becomes the world around it. And one of the ways we did that was through nature education. And we happened to go at a time when Oregon was just edible. And it was fantastic. We've been doing these backpacking trips every summer, but this was, it was fruit salad and vegetable salad, full plate of each, every hiking day. It was fantastic. Miner's lettuce and Oregon grape and oxalis and bracken ferns and salmon berries and huckleberries, and there were like 3 blackberries that were ripe. Lots and lots of edibles, plantains.
And thimbleberries are on the way if anyone wants to go for thimbleberries. There was more than I'd ever seen in my life, almost ripe, probably in 3 or 4 weeks.
So we forget that as we co-evolved with it, this forest was literally designed for our survival. And to really touch that, I feel, can really affect someone's sense of safety upon this earth. To know that I, as a separate being, and this whole planet have been in coevolution together in a way that, believe it or not, has apparently been symbiotic, because we're all here this whole time and has given fruit to your life. Despite all the tragedies that have happened, you are the fruit of the last 5 billion years of terrestrial evolution. Wow.
Yeah, this sense of belonging that Soten referenced, the sense of safety. I think that's really the, the insight that we belong here, that we're okay here, exactly as we are, and a kind of settling in to reality, you might call it. That we don't have to manipulate our lives the way that we thought to. And the forest is a perfect example of this. Something falls in the forest and it just stays there. It just receives it there, and then it works with it there. It evolves with it there. So in a way, all of our suffering that we have in our life is because we have this imagined system of beliefs about how we think the life should be, and we're manipulating and trying to control it, thinking that we control it, but actually we don't control it. We belong to it, and we can relax. And we can, in the forest, it's like a living teacher in that. It's always relaxed into itself. And whatever weather comes through and whatever season comes through, it's in this complete state of belonging flow, you might call it, which actually we're in as well. But we don't recognize that a lot of the time. And so we have this sense that something's wrong. That's it. It's an illusion. It's not. Nothing's wrong.
So in the story of the Shakyamuni Buddha's life, the figurehead of our tradition, part of the story is the Buddha was practicing with a group of 5 practitioners in the forest. And you can imagine them each having learned various meditation practices, various ascetic practices, going off, doing their thing, coming back together, checking in about how it was going time to time. And I was, in the heart, reminded of that story as we practiced together through these couple weeks, of what it might have been like 2,000 years ago, being with a band of forested practitioners, and then delighting in the beauty of seeing that still happening today. And I was left with, and as we close, maybe we'll just offer this to you as a final question that comes from some of the Native American traditions, is this idea of looking 7 generations ahead when a decision is in process. Because when we were out in the forest, I really found myself wondering, how would I live concerning spiritual practice, concerning use of resources, allocation of time, relationships, if I really, really had my heart down to the bottom, aware of my descendants and generations to come, despite everything, we really should assume, because we are here, we really should assume that our descendants will be too, and should live and act accordingly. So what's called forth from you in your life when you really reflect in that way?